I want to talk to you about a dangerous occupation. It's being a pastor. 70% of us fight depression. 80% of seminary or Bible college graduates who enter local church ministry leave within the first 5 years. If you're listening to this, the odds are that you've beaten the odds. Here's a bad stat. 57% of currently serving pastors would leave if they could find something else to do, something they were trained for, something that would pay them. And my task is to talk to you about your call and courageous perseverance. So how do you last? Well, here's a great suggestion. Don't leave. Now, I have a smiley face there because that's a little too simple. It's the easy answer. But I bet you've thought of leaving, haven't you? I wonder what it would be like to sell insurance. I wonder what it would be like to teach school. I wonder what it would be like to, do almost anything. I used to think of leaving all the time. When I would hear some old pastor say that he couldn't think of anything in the world he'd rather do you know what I thought? 100 things. I thought, I can think of 100 things I'd rather do. You have those thoughts. After your last sermon didn't go so well, or after the last board meeting didn't go so well, or after the last conversation you had with an irate parishioner, or maybe an irate senior pastor, or after the last conversation with your spouse about something that somebody said, that somebody said, that somebody said. I mean, you probably had those, man, there's got to be an easier job than this. So with thoughts of leaving dancing in your head, how do you persevere? Well, here's a great suggestion. Be realistic. Lots of us decided to be pastors because we had a pastor who made a difference in our lives, and we thought, I want to do that. And as we began to think about it, God began to move in our hearts. He began to move in our minds, and we got a call. We answered that call. But most of us never realized that that guy who was so heroic to us, that guy was being criticized. Let me tell you something. All pastors get criticized. All pastors get discouraged. All pastors get hurt. All. But for some reason, you get surprised when it happens to you. Let me let you in on a secret. All of us get discouraged. It's going to happen. Criticism happened to Jesus. I don't know who you are, but I know you're not as good as Jesus, and if he got criticized, why shouldn't following the Master bring criticism to your doorstep as well? Following the call and receiving criticism go together. The sooner you quit dreaming about going to church where nobody criticizes you, where you won't get discouraged, the healthier you'll become. Now, here's another suggestion. Don't compare. Stop comparing. You ever sit at your desk and dream of being Andy Stanley or Kevin Myers or the guy across the town who has a bigger church? You ever sit and dream about that? Some of you thinking, not me. Don't lie. Of course you have. We all have those dreams, those times when the other guy's church looks better. And then what we do is play the if-only game. If only I lived in that city. If only I had more mature members. If only I had younger members. If only I had resources. If only the district superintendent would recognize how gifted I am. Let me help you with this. Stop. Just stop doing that. Let me tell you about one of the most important decisions I ever made. I decided that I would stay at my current assignment, my current church, until God told me I was done. And until He told me I was done, I wouldn't talk to anybody else, any other search committee, any other church, and I would refuse to think if-only thoughts. I would refuse to think even about another church. And if God ever told me I was done at my church, I would resign whether I had any place to go or not. Don't go looking for another place and then resign if you find a better place. If God tells you you're done, be done, because it's hard to keep your heart in the game if you've already quit in your mind. I'm here at my assignment by God's call. I serve God here. I won't play the climb the ladder game. trading this church for the next bigger church every few years. I didn't do it when our church was 24 people. I won't do it now. I will be all in right here. But to stay here, I've got to get better. And so do you. Get better. Those things that people criticize are a signal that you have improvement that needs to happen in your life. Preaching skills, personality development, leadership. I don't know what it is, but it's something. If you're continually growing, what you have is an opportunity to keep developing your ministry and your church is likely to be growing too, and it's easy to stay at a growing church. But you also have to get better relationally. God gave you people to love. Love them. Sometimes it's hard to do that. Love them anyway. Stop complaining about them. It's hard to love people you're complaining about. Put your ego aside. Simply love the people you've got. And then get better spiritually. Here's a scary number. 70. That's the percentage of pastors who report that the only time they read the Bible is when they're preparing to preach or teach. I'll tell you, if you're drying up on the inside, you cannot keep pouring yourself into people and stay healthy, either spiritually or emotionally. You can't control whether people complain. You can control the spiritual care and feeding of your own soul. Well, it's time to stop, but I have one last thing to suggest. You know the old saying that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence? Nowhere does that seem more true than for a pastor. But one of the things we forget is that the other church has problems too. After all, it has people. And maybe the biggest problem of all is simply this. You. Wherever you go, you take you with you. You take your problems with you. You take your ego with you. You take it to the next church, or if you change careers, you take it to insurance, or you take it to school teaching. But if you work on you, and if you grow you, there's a good chance that God will grow your church, and perseverance will become far more likely. God bless you as you make a difference in the kingdom.